Uh, awesome. Well, I am here with Jana Schmidt, an incredibly impressive woman who currently is the CEO of the Pine Services Group, which is an ERP platform holding company that's a private equity platform, part of the Evergreen private equity group. And among other things, and a long resume of extremely impressive and prestigious roles in leadership, CEO of energy groups, CEO in the financial services sector, a lot of CEO roles in the technology-driven sectors. But Jana, really appreciate not only you being on the podcast today, but having me out to just have a brief moment with your team, which was just been an absolutely impressive event, and I'm super excited to talk to you about that and you as a leader and as a person, because you are incredibly impressive. So
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I guess let's just start like where we are today. So the Pine Services Group. I had the opportunity to speak with your team about leadership, and you guys are very into the extreme ownership principles and things like that. But what was immediately apparent to anybody coming from the outside into the group was it is beyond what you would call tight-knit, beyond what you would call a fun atmosphere. It was like an atmosphere of love. And I saw that emanating from you. I saw that most definitely finds its way all the way down every rung of your organization. That people just love each other. They love being around each other. They love what they do. They love this organization. They love the companies. And let's be honest, and we both know this, that's not necessarily the norm in private equity. Certainly not the stereotype. So how do you is that something that you would say is deliberate, like that is the culture that you want to drive? Or do you think that is a byproduct of who you are anyway? How much thought do you put into that part of the culture?
We put a lot of thought into the way we interact and the community we build. That's a big part of my day. Every day is how do I help the CEOs. I have 11 CEOs that report to me. We've acquired 14 companies in finance and accounting.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't sound like the funnest vertical in the world to be a bunch of
Fun,
CPAs
when you're with
that are
them,
doing
it's fun.
Software implementation. But the thing that we look for when we acquire companies is based on the Berkshire Hathaway model of looking for really good companies that are capable of growing long term, and we buy and hold them forever.
Yeah.
We want it to be a permanent home for leaders. And so a byproduct of that model is that we buy really good companies, and those really good companies have really good leaders. And they care so much about their employees, they care so much about their customers, and they're very passionate about continuing to evolve and be relevant and competitive in this market.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is the model we have is not a burn and churn kind of environment where you might get the kind of people who are more transactional in nature. We are very, very committed to a long-term play.
Yeah.
And so I think the model attracts great people. And then I think we care and nurture a lot about the way we work together. Someone said, and I apologize for swearing, but said, like, in our group, there's, no brilliant assholes. We don't want that toxic approach. Not that we don't have people that maybe are that way, so I'm certainly not suggesting we're perfect at that, but it is a very low ego group. It is a very altruistic team that cares as much about helping each other as they do about building their businesses. It's actually weird, a little weird.
It shows.
I've never experienced anything like this personally.
No, and I honestly haven't seen it. It is unique. I actually had one of your younger members, new members to the team. When we were playing pickleball last night, actually, kind of just pulled me aside, and he asked about culture. He said, "How do you know?" He said, "This is really like my first. I'm new, so I haven't seen as much."
Yeah.
And he said, "How do you know a good culture when you see it?" which was an awesome question.
That is an awesome question.
And I was like I was just trying to stave off passing out from playing pickleball.
You were awesome, by the way.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, he played one time
So much
before
fun.
and came in second.
Silver medalist.
Yeah, silver medalist.
But I had an awesome
with
partner.
a very competitive and very young and mobile group of pickleballers.
Yeah,
you were
I
fantastic.
was not in the young side of the demographic. But so what I said to him, which is funny that you just said that. I said when I had a company that I was running, if I went up to somebody and said, "Hey, great job on this," and they said, "Oh, actually, it was this person, and I got help from this person and that person,"
Yes.
that's how I knew it was a good culture.
Yes.
Because it shows a security. One, that person is so secure that they're doing a good job, that I recognize that they're doing a good job, that the team recognizes, that they don't feel like they need to take credit, and that they want other people. They're more excited about other people getting recognized.
Right.
That's a tremendous, and that certainly is the atmosphere here at Pine.
It is.
And then he asked, like, what about, how do you know when it's a good culture in the bad times? And he wasn't saying like that, because I had talked about turnarounds and things like that. And I said in the turnaround, and I had seen this great analogy about soccer team. If you're up 1-0 with a minute to go, the team's goal is to win the soccer game. So you pull your forwards back and they play defense. If you have forwards that are like, "No, I'm a scorer," and they try and take the ball and score unnecessarily, you're about to win the game anyway. That's the wrong. What you need is everybody is willing to do whatever it takes at any time, whatever the circumstance. And in the bad times, I think that's doubly important. If I'm in sales, but operations is struggling, I'm going to devote my resources to them so that I can fix that problem and go sell it. If I'm in operations and we have low sales, get on the horn, make some phone calls, like do whatever you can for the
Right.
team in the bad times. And in the good times, it's about sharing the recognition.
Yes.
But you guys do that in spades. I love the awards that you gave out, and the awards you had very metric-based ones that are based on revenue growth, and you also had relatively qualitative ones that are based on employee satisfaction, happiness, the customer.
Persistence.
Yeah.
Things that are,
So it's very clear, like it's the money where your mouth is thing on this. The other thing I recognized was you have a lot of founders who not only stay, but love it, which is odd. A lot of times you build a business for 30 years and you sell it to a group. It's really hard. That's very hard for anybody. And you have a lot of founders in that room that were there, that loved it. Came out and played pickleball and were having a blast, and then pulled me aside unprompted to tell me how much they liked it. People you would not expect based on their personality, because an entrepreneur's personality is big, most of the time.
yeah.
But they loved they would come to me. How amazing is this? How amazing is being part of this Pine group? Like, have you ever seen anything like it? And it was no. So my question is that you have a tremendous amount of empathy in your room. When you interact with people, it is very loving, right? Yet you can sense a tremendous respect. How do you do both? Because that
That's a
is
great question.
hard to do. Most people don't do it.
You said something yesterday, and by the way, thank you so much for participating and helping us in our
Oh, so much
organization.
fun.
I've heard at breakfast, I was having a meeting with someone, and he was like, "I realized I'm making type 2 decisions with my career. I need to make different decisions. Help me." And
Cool.
and I saw people thinking about their organization design. I saw people thinking about their strategy. I saw people thinking about, I've been wanting to make this change and I just haven't done it, and I'm ready to go back and make that change. So thank you.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
you propelled
So
our
much fun.
business forward. But first of all, I have been in the shoes of those CEOs, not exactly because I have never been a founder, but I have been the CEO of a business, and I have had to make hard choices, and I've had to grow the companies. And so I empathize with them for sure. And it is a very hard job. And the expectations that we have of ongoing good, healthy, revenue-based growth is a tough one. But it's what I love about it is based on win more, grow your revenue, win more new customers, expand your customer relationships. We are not a private equity that's pushing cost reductions.
No,
We
that
don't
actually, that never
synergize
came
it.
up once.
We don't.
Never, ever was margin even
Yeah.
mentioned or cutting or
Yes.
reduction. It was all just sell more.
Sell more.
That's pretty cool.
And I mean, of course, there's cost management because you want to invest
yeah.
in the right things. But that's just healthy.
That's just business.
That's
yeah.
P&L management.
But that was, that didn't even, that
That's
wasn't
not-
part of the strategic part of
It
the
is not.
discussion.
And again, credit to Evergreen. Huge credit to our founders for that model that we believe these businesses over time can sustain 15% year-over-year EBITDA growth through winning, through getting more customers to say yes to us. And we believe that the market we're in supports that. And so I've been in the shoes of these CEOs, and I do empathize with them. And I also can push because I can see things I needed to do in their shoes. And I know mistakes I've made. And I can talk about those things in a way that I feel like is both caring and demanding. Like, I know you can do more. And I'm behind you all the way. And that's the truth, right?
Sure.
And you said, what I was going to say earlier is you said something about people can take bad news. Treat people like adults.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. You know, I
Yeah.
believe just be transparent. And that transparency builds trust. Like, you'll be the first to know if I've got something to say. I promise you that.
Right.
I will not withhold that on a caring basis or on a demanding basis. Like, I'm going to push you, but I'm going to tell you great job as well. And you can trust me.
Trust is huge. Now, so did you, it's probably, I think this is true of anybody in a leadership position. You know, the more experience you have, the more people will trust, the quicker maybe, I'd
Yes.
say, people will trust you. How did you get to this point though? And it's not easy to come up in business as anybody. It's not easy to come up in business as someone who tends toward wanting to be the nurturing, that it's easier, not better, but to be a cutthroat asshole and just
Yeah.
slash your way to the top somewhere.
Yes.
It's not more fulfilling, and it certainly doesn't add more value to the world. But
Yes.
how did you manage that? And in a world where, you're facing a lot of uphill battles, and you're probably perceived, especially early in the career,
Yeah.
as like, oh, she's loves everybody, and she's too. Was there ever anybody that's like, oh, she's too nice?
Probably early in my career, I was too ambitious, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, I think that as I've aged, I have become more, it's not about me at all anymore. And it is about winning. It is about being the best we can be.
Yeah.
But it is not about me and what's my next move. I just don't have any of that stuff anymore. I don't
Right.
care about that. My first thing is to surround myself with awesome people who are better at their jobs than I ever could be. Do what I do, which is, I think, bring out talent. I'm not the person who is going to spend all day in the P&L looking for 20 basis points improvements in service margins I have a team that does that
Sure.
because it does need to be done. But what I do is I am constantly talking and coaching people and thinking about what's the next thing that person should do or I could help them do that would help them be successful. And then, like you saw my team, Leela, Preston, Brian, Elon, this whole team across all of Pine, not just the people I just mentioned, but everyone is better at their job than I ever could be. And they have super talents. I love strength finders. I don't know how much you subscribe to it. It's not like I could tell you my perfect scores or anything, but I know what I'm good at. And they know what they're good at, and I know what they're good at. And it's like, let them do it.
Yeah.
Elon, we were just talking about, we have a young man on our team, and he's remarkably young. I mean, doesn't know shows that were defining my life. He wasn't born yet. Having said that,
work a rotary phone.
Yes. Having said that, he sits in meetings as my proxy, representing me in high stakes acquisitions because he's so smart, he's so capable, he connects dots, he never lets me down, and so it's not about age; it's about his superpowers.
Yeah.
And letting people do that. extreme ownership to me is all about accountability and empowerment. And I love
Yeah.
that. I love to be treated that way. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't probably overmanage people, maybe to a fault, because I hate being overmanaged
Yeah.
so badly.
Well, I think ultimately that's the goal. Like if you have to manage people, then they're probably not the right people.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of discussions, and that's the big thing, especially with changing organizations, is
Yeah.
even if you have the right organization for today, like you said,
Yes.
is it the right organization for tomorrow? And making those changes is the most challenging thing in business.
It is.
And so that, generally speaking, is where you spend most of your time
All day.
as a leader, is figuring out getting the right team, and how do you do that effectively, safely for the organization,
Yeah.
in a way that's human,
Yes.
and not overly ambitious,
Yes.
but at the same time business. And the balance, it's so dynamic, and there's just no right and wrong. But it's like I was saying yesterday, there are just people that other people tend to want to follow.
Yeah.
And so you're that.
Thank you.
And do you have you, if you were to look back at your career, did you strive to be a CEO? Did you strive to be a leader? Did you just strive to improve? Like, if you could think back to how did you get to today?
Yeah.
Where you're like we said yesterday, you're like a general.
Yeah.
You are the CEO of 14 CEOs
Yeah.
and more to come.
I think there's some basic principles that formed or made me who I am, including my father was a general contractor, and he worked so hard. And I watched that man, regardless of what he was doing, he was up at 4:30 in the morning every day, and there was never excuses. He always took responsibility. He weathered really hard times, and he always did it in the most human of ways. He always was about taking care of people. So I got to witness that. I graduated. I thought I was going to be a psychologist, actually, and started in sales when I figured out it was
Now
going
you
to
are.
take a long time to be. Yeah, I am a psychologist. It took a long time to make any money because I was also very. You talked about fear. Kind of drives you. I really hated the notion of being poor. We didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
And I always was fueled by that. Like, I'm going to have a life where I can be secure and successful and safe. So I always protected my downside in some ways, but it also propelled me to try for the next thing and the next thing. And man, I was just given so many good opportunities where I could just say yes and go learn operations. I was exposed to Lean Six Sigma by a plant manager in Portland, Oregon, who taught me about Edward Deming and the quality principles, and I love that. It taught me so much about how design thinking works. And I was in sales. I was a sales leader. This is
Really?
not. My team was like, we need to get her out of this room because she's leaning way too much about this. Because I started design thinking the sales model because
Wow.
everything is about design.
Yeah, that's true. That could be applied to anything.
Anything. But so I think if anything, I kept saying yes. I'd get an opportunity and I'd be like, sure. Some of it's because it was more money and I liked the de-risk part of it. But I always like the next challenge. So did I say CEO? No, but I would say I was born to work hard. I was trained as a young woman as Terry, my father. Ted Miller Construction Company was the company. My dad was Frank T. Miller. I was trained every day by him about working hard and about doing right by people. And those were just values that were the only acceptable ones we had.
Right.
And so I said yes, worked hard, was willing to learn and invest a lot of time learning. Always. Like, I still devour information. My husband, Jeff, and I were constantly like, did you read that? Did you see that? We love new information.
Yeah,
and that
that's
helped
cool.
me to find the next thing.
Yeah. And I think you find that pretty often. It's like, if your goal is to just be CEO, then you'll find some path there maybe, but if your goal is to just constantly improve, you'll end up being a CEO and you'll won't even realize it. Yeah.
And you asked just about my style. One thing I would say, I don't know if you follow Marcus Buckingham. He was at Gallup and did a lot of the work on Strength Finders early.
Okay, yeah.
Early, he wrote a book, First Break All the Rules. It's probably like 25 years old now, but he's at Gallup, and he said recently, by recent it was probably 5 years ago, but that the most engaged employees are people who report having a best friend at work.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
And I have best friends everywhere I go.
Right.
Like you said, love. I really do love these folks.
Yeah.
We are best friends. And so wherever I go, I find people that I care about so much.
Yeah.
And they care about winning as much as I care about winning. And then it's fun. It's easy. It's like, let's go. Mm-hmm. So that is a part of wherever I go. That is very important to me, that I look around the room and I have people
Have you had a major challenge or a low point in your career where you were like, I'm done. I've had, it's just, this was too much. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna lose. Like, was there some moment where you just were like rock bottom in your career and you had to figure out how to dig out of that?
I've had many, but two really stand out. You know, and I want to say to everybody, one thing I also learned, like I said, I'm not as ambitious for myself anymore. I also realize everything always works out.
It's funny. It's so true.
It always works out. It's always
So
going to
true.
be okay.
Yeah.
And so I try to live more in the middle, like less highs and lows, and just try to remember, even when there are those intense times, everything is going to work out. And someone once said, and I'm sure you've heard it, but like if you could see your life in reverse, you would see all those dots that were back there that were connecting for your good that you had no idea. When something bad happens, there's another dot in front of you.
Yeah.
And you just don't see it yet. And you're going to connect to it, and it's just going to keep working out. So I tell my team that all the time. When we don't hit our numbers, it's all going to be fine. It always is.
Yeah.
And so I do have that perspective now.
It's so true.
Now.
It's easy to say that in hindsight. It's very difficult to say that in the moment.
At my age now, I see it. I've got so many proof points.
Right.
I would be an idiot to not have faith in, the goodness of how things work. But when I was the CEO of the Energy and Sustainability Company, we were acquired by a French organization. Lovely people, amazing humans. But we kind of got matrixed in. And I found myself I could not figure out how to win. I couldn't figure out, I had differing objectives coming from people. Like, if you just do this, you're good. If you do that, you're good.
Right.
I could not figure out how to lead well. I felt like on behalf of my company, I was all over the place. I was trying to please so many different audiences and constituents and people that I did not do my best. So I own that. But I also feel like I couldn't decipher the strategy of winning.
Yeah.
And I stayed longer than I should have, because there were people who were better at that than I was. That they understood the culture. They knew how to tune this out and listen to this. And they were able to reduce the priorities to those top 3 to 5 that matter most. And I was a bit lost. And I remember I was in San Francisco at a meeting, and I told my boss at the time, I'm done. We were getting on a ship for this corporate event, and I was like, I resign.
Yeah.
I'm not resigning today. We can decide how this goes. It can be a month, it can be 2 months, I'll stay 6 months, but I'm done.
Yeah.
I literally am so stressed out all the time, because for me, lack of accountability, lack of empowerment, lack of a clear path to winning gives me such stress. And I should have opted out much sooner, or helped them to find a better person for that job. And it was just breaking me. I was not myself at all. And so I had to free myself of that. And it taught me a lot about that in every career, there's a place where you're perfect, and there's a place where you no longer are. And you got to spot those. And it's okay when you're no longer the perfect person for that job.
Right.
Sometimes it's going to be like, for the next stage of growth, it takes someone different. And in that case, it took someone different and better than me. at that
At
next
that,
stage.
yeah.
So, and that was the very low point. It was really hard.
Really? Yeah, I mean, that's a stressful way to live. And I think everybody has experienced, like, I think everybody's experienced at some point dreading going to work.
Yes.
And hopefully everybody has or will experience you can't wait to
Yeah,
go to work.
loving, skipping to work. Yeah.
And like, that's what you should seek.
Yeah.
And as soon as it becomes that dread thing,
Yes.
you know the answer. We talked about this a
Yes.
lot yesterday, and I talk about it a lot all the time. It's like there's so many decisions that you ask the question
Yeah.
because you already know the answer, and you sort of just want to hear somebody else
Yeah.
say it. But if you're in that situation,
Yes.
and just every day you wake up and you're more tired than when you went to sleep.
Yes.
It's,
But did you find, again, to the
I'm just
notion
gonna
of,
move this
okay.
just like a little bit this way, just so the camera's on your face. Eh?
Did you find in those times where you were dreading work, which I definitely had those two, where I was just, the role was not a match for my strength set at
Yep.
all, and it would just drained me every day. I still learned something I needed to know.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
if you're going through that and you're like, ugh, this is not, this isn't where I should be, I found every one of those situations taught me something that I had to know to do the next thing. So it's still serving a purpose. Like my husband had a business that he had, it was 25 years ago. He worked for a leader who was terrible. He was just a terrible person. And he was there 2 years. And I just watched Jeff, it was agonizing. It was so hard. He could not figure out how to win. And the guy was the kind of leader that will never compliment, but will tear you down in front of everybody, any chance they get. But it was at that company where Jeff first started learning about cybersecurity.
Oh wow.
And if he hadn't endured that difficult, draining, soul-sucking situation, he wouldn't have found that total interest in cybersecurity that he went on to use and in every company afterwards.
Wow.
And so even then we're like, dadgum, that company nearly killed him. But to this day, part of our income, part of our family's security, part of what we have is because of that. So he took a situation that was not good, used that dot to connect to something better.
I love that notion of it always works out. And that could be one of the most powerful things that I've come across, actually, in terms of when the times are bad. If you have to consciously at that time, it's easy to say that when everything's rolling your way, but when you're at that rock bottom point, it is true. Like life always works out.
Yes.
And man, that's incredible.
And it's a little like what you said about the person on that helicopter who said, "Are you afraid?"
Right.
And he said, "I sure am." It's okay to say like, "All right, this is serious stuff, right? We got to figure this out, but we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Let's just figure out the next right thing to do."
Yeah.
And then you do that, and then suddenly it's like you start to pull yourself out of it.
Yeah.
And whatever it's going to be, it's going to be okay.
Sure. And that's the thing is when the thing you need to do and when you're in the hole is get out.
Yes.
And the freeze thing is like it could be tempting to wallow in self-pity and just say you're doomed and your fate has been sealed. But if you remember that it always works out every single time.
Does.
That could just be enough just to say I'm just going to scratch out of this thing.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm glad I asked that question. I didn't even plan on asking that question.
And believing that you have control of that. Like, I guess part of it always working out is that you're also willing to move. You move your feet. What's it going to be? Like, it's going to work out. But if you don't get out of the hole, you got to move your feet to get out of the hole, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you do, it's going to be okay. We're going to work through this. It always works out, but you got to move.
Yeah.
And sometimes even moving in the wrong direction is better than moving in no direction.
Absolutely.
Let's do something. And
Yeah,
then we're going to do the next
type 1
thing.
versus type 2.
It is.
Just don't
do
freeze.
something. Yes.
Do anything.
Yes. Yeah.
No, that's incredible. So let me ask this question. Is it more difficult to become a leader in business as a woman, would you say? Have you ever, have you thought about that? Have you experienced things that have made you like think that, or is that not?
It deserves such a good answer because there's so many women who look to me to answer that well. Mm-hmm. What I will tell you most of the time
And I hope I didn't.
Oh, no, I'm glad you asked it, but I would tell you, ironically, I forget that I am a woman.
All right. Yeah.
I just do what I do, right? And I don't focus on what is different about me as much as I focus on, like, winning.
Yeah.
Just, I'm a part of a team.
And I think the
I'm part of
people
a
that are
team.
following you,
Yeah.
they're not like, oh, that's my woman CEO. That's
I
my
don't
CEO.
think- yeah,
I'm just a
yes.
CEO.
I
But it's
think
not
that.
always the case, I would think.
It's
And
not.
I ask this as a very proud girl dad.
Yes. I would say, like, there's a lot of things that help me to be successful in business. Compete, be in sports, or whatever it is. Compete in something. Have a mentality of, and I say winning all the time, and I'm so sorry, but I love winning. But
It's pretty
have
cool.
the notion of success. Like, it could be at chess, it could be at dance, it could be in designing, whatever it is. But have a feeling of like, what does good look like, and to lean into that. But I do love girls being in sports, whatever that is, because competition is a part of business.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to develop a strategy to be successful is developing a strategy to win. And in competition, you learn to be bruised, to lose, because in sports, you always lose. So, at some point.
You don't go undefeated your whole life.
For sure. In fact,
Right.
I was watching Derek Jeter talk about as amazing a baseball player as he was, and as amazing he was at batting, still 700 out of 1,000 at bats, he struck out.
Yeah.
He's like, it's a terrible sport. It's so discouraging. He
Yeah.
lost more than he won, right? So
Sure.
that's what sports and things of that kind of teach us. And boys, I feel like, are a little bit more naturally drawn and or pushed towards sports. And I love
Yeah.
girls doing whatever it is, their way, their style, because losing and putting together a strategy to win helps you be success in business, helping you to be a good teammate, helping you to realize, like in tennis, on the tennis court, I love tennis. You could just like hate that person on the other side, but at the end of it, shake hands, say
Yeah.
good game, and maybe go have a glass of Chardonnay. I mean, right? That's sports.
That's the way to bury the hatchet.
You don't have to hate them for real. You
right.
just like, at this moment, I want to destroy you, but then
Yes.
afterwards, you're just a person that I have a shared interest with.
Sure.
And I think sports teaches you that. And that is
Absolutely.
something in business, I think, like, they're just somebody else, somebody on the other side trying to win at their game, and I want to defeat them, but I don't have to not like them.
Right.
It's not emotional.
I've thought about this in the way that, you know, the things that are considered naturally inherent in women
Yeah.
are things that are actually some of the most powerful business tools, which are empathy,
Empathy. Yeah.
like especially empathy, and not sympathy, but empathy. Empathy is just knowing what somebody else feels. And men are not always in tune to that. And that if it's a customer and understanding, oh, I know you're angry because of this, or I know you're confused, whatever it may be, that skill set
Yeah.
is something that competitiveness, absolutely everybody needs, but man or woman, you need empathy.
Yes, you do.
To be a leader, and or anything, to be a good teammate.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the biggest brutes that I've ever served in the military with, they're still good at being acute, in tune to other people's, especially their teammates' feeling at
Yes.
the time. But that, I think, is something that women have more naturally in many
Yes.
cases. That
well, it's
probably
nurtured
helps.
more in us.
Yeah.
It can be kind of nurtured or pushed out of boys to got to be tough.
All right, that's true
And
too.
with
yeah.
girls, it's a bit more embraced. But I think that ability to put yourself in other people's shoes,
Yeah.
think about where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You know, I think you had that model, the discipline model. The first thing was about being honest.
Yeah.
It was yourself at night. Like, what are you thinking? A lot of times, what I'm honest about is like, I didn't handle that right with them. didn't approach that right, and I need to call them and apologize about that. Like, my empathy can be proactive, like putting myself in their shoes, and then it might be reflective, like I could have done better.
Yeah.
How do I see now more where they were coming from on that,
Yeah,
because I am
interesting.
now I'm hearing the
Right.
conversation differently, and how am I mature enough to go and say, hey, I wish I had that conversation differently, and
Yeah,
I see your point of view better.
That's deep empathy. That's amazing. And so in what proportion of your reactions do you think were overreacting towards the like anger side versus the, oh, I was too easy on them side? Or do you have a spectrum that you reflect? Have you ever thought like I should have been tougher on somebody, or do you err on the side of I'm going to be really hard on them?
I would say where I have my spectrum is how much does it go with what I had in my head that I wanted to happen, right?
Interesting.
So if it's
you're
all
focusing
playing to
on
my
the outcome.
yeah,
That's
if it's
great.
along my playbook
Yeah.
and what I want, hey, maybe I'm going easy because not the right thing that they did, but it kept me on the path I wanted. Where sometimes I have to reflect is I might be really hard on someone because they're coming at it differently than what I saw, and I want to kind of correct.
Yeah.
And then I hear myself, and I'm thinking, I think that what I was doing was like, they wanted to approach this thing very differently than what I would have done. And I just shut them down. And so I need to go back and go, hey, not how I do it. But hey, could work out. Go for it. And so sometimes it's just, I would say I probably err on tough conversations. Done lovingly. But where I have to course correct sometimes is just I might see a way to get there what I think is faster or better, and I need to allow people to do things their way. Like that's what extreme ownership is too, right?
True.
Accountability. You own it. You own the outcome. Go do it.
Yes. I really like that angle where you're focusing on the outcome of the interaction, not the method.
Yeah.
That's like next level empathy. Very interesting concept. And so when you talk about the empowerment piece, in your position, you're also, it's pretty unique and extraordinary. So you're the leader of leaders.
Yeah.
So you're already dealing with people who are very strong
Yeah.
personality type
Yeah.
people
Yep.
who have their own convictions, their own leadership styles. How have you seen that as a challenge, and how does that differ than being the CEO of a company where now you've got a VP of sales or a COO or
Yes.
something like that?
Yeah. It is a real dance because our model is a very decentralized one. So when I was joining the company, first of all, I thought, I want to be the CEO. I want to run the company because it's so much fun. And I love that. And I thought, am I going to be my best self leading people who are actually doing the work and leading people who are actually having the fun instead of being a part of it? But I'm getting so much satisfaction out of it because, again, my strength is what's your strategy? And then where I spend so much of my time is, do you have the team to execute? Do you have the plan? Do you have the strategy? And then let's talk about your team. And then I have to think about them.
Yeah.
Are they showing up with a CEO mindset? Are they showing up with a kind of drive, urgency, intellectual horsepower, empathy, planning capability, all those CEO scorecard things that I need to see? And so if it's a yes there, then are they doing everything they need to hold their team accountable? And do they have the right people to drive it?
Yeah.
So it's a ton of fun. But they are very strong people. So I think that
they would have to be.
I do think that having been in their chair, they give me a little bit more leeway to
I would think so.
share. I think it would be very difficult. A lot of private equity strategies and kind of practices have some really brilliant person who's maybe from finance.
Yeah.
And so what you end up doing is talking all about where are your financials?
Yeah.
And that is also an outcome of I spend all my time
Yeah.
upstream. Do you have a plan and do you have the people?
Exactly.
If you have that, I don't have to spend all my time on the financials because they will come.
Yes. It's like I could either strive to be a CEO, in which case I'm going to get in some sort of backstabbing race to the top.
Yeah.
Or I can strive to constantly be better, constantly learn,
Yes.
help other people, and then
Yes.
I will be a CEO
Yes.
without even realizing it. And
Yes.
it's the same with the finances. You know,
Yes.
if we have a great culture, great people, great product,
Yeah.
finance is secondary.
Exactly.
Finances will come.
Yes.
But you're right. It's rare to have groups that actually don't focus on just a P&L.
Yes.
And I learned, I actually don't even look at P&Ls. I think that all I look at is balance sheet. Is the company strong?
Yeah.
You can look at a balance sheet in 25 seconds and
Yeah.
determine if it's a strong company or not.
Yeah.
Just the ratios.
Yes.
And if it's a strong company, it has a good P&L. I
Yes.
already know that.
Yes.
And if it's not, it's
That's
either
interesting.
over levered or
Yeah.
it's not making money or it's got working capital
Yeah.
capital issues.
Yeah.
But the P&L it's the glitter. Just look at is the balance sheet strong? It's got a good P&L.
Very good point. It's a very good
So
point.
I don't even, but it's the same. I think the balance sheet tells you more about the people indirectly. You can peer through the
Yeah.
balance sheet lines and just see this is a good organization. They
Yeah.
don't take wild chances with debt.
Yeah.
They have good working capital management.
Yeah.
Like strategically, they
Yeah.
can't be going wrong there.
You're absolutely right.
So,
You're absolutely right.
and I think it's people, and that's where you guys just absolutely thrive.
Man, it is,
at
and I
Pine
give
Group.
all the credit to Evergreen. Everything you just described is what they would describe as attribute-based hiring. They focus on the attributes and somewhat less the experience. Because the notion is if you have all those attributes, the experience can multiply it. But they start with attributes first. And that's like low ego. That's a huge difference in our business. We talked about that.
Yeah.
That we look for humility. Again, not your number one PE oriented strength,
No,
right?
no, I would
I
say
mean,
not.
sorry, no offense, but
That's the reality.
it's not lack of confidence, but it's just really, really low.
Well, I'd say it's an abundance of confidence.
It's an abundance
Au
of that's
contraire.
right. Yes.
If you are a humble, empathetic person that you're not driven by
Yeah.
the glamour and whatnot,
Yes.
you have an abundance of confidence, and
True.
that I think is what you're really filtering out
Yes.
there.
And you came to our award ceremony for Evergreen, and you heard our founders,
Yes.
Jeff Tottenens and Ramsey Sayun. And I don't know if you were struck, Jeff Tottenens, like 75% of his talk was expressing gratitude.
Yes.
I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. That is just so unique to have that kind of maturity and perspective that it wasn't, just all about the numbers or all about the outcomes. It was like the heart of this organization is low ego. How can we win? How can we help each other? How can we have people sitting around the table that are just good humans? And that's what we are really blessed to have.
That's awesome. Do you have or maybe a few, just if you look back on your career, a few moments where you're like, that was the greatest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
My biggest success.
Yeah.
My favorite part, my favorite story to tell
Yes.
about my career.
Well, one thing that it goes back to your first question about did you have a failure? Because that failure connected to one of my greatest successes in my whole life. And I'm going to send this to my friend Sharon Osterholt, who worked with me forever. She's one of my best friends on earth. And there was a bank called Washington Mutual, and we had a big contract with them, like $12 million a year contract. And we lost it. And I could give you a million reasons why we lost that account. Doesn't even matter. I own it. Sucks. You had to let we closed plants. We had to let hundreds of people go. It was a very big contract for us. And I remember I was at a courtyard in Denver, Colorado, wallowing in the awfulness and pity on myself. And I sat up and I called Sharon and I said, today's the day we start our journey to win Wells Fargo, which was 10 times bigger.
Wow.
And I ultimately moved from Denver to California. Sharon and I would have, I mean, we didn't have cell phones like we do today. Like we had speaker phones, and we would be on our speaker phones all day. Like just call each other and sit there. And all day it was like, who are you going to see? Who are you going to call? Who's next? We would come to Atlanta. We would do presentations to the company about when we win Wells Fargo. We hadn't even presented to them. We hadn't even given them a price yet. It was like, when we win this,
Yeah.
it's going to require whole new modes of working. You're going to need new machinery. You're going to need. We sent the book Good to Great to everybody who was going to be on Team Wells Fargo.
Oh, it's a good book.
We did all of that, and there were moments where like we may not win this thing. But man, when the CEO at the time called me, I saw on my phone, it said Wells Fargo calling. It was like 8:30 in the morning Pacific time. And I said to Sharon, we were on the phone, I was like, someone from Wells Fargo's calling me. And it was the CEO at the time.
The CEO of Wells Fargo?
Yes, called me. His name was John
cow.
Stump. And he said, I'd like to congratulate the John Harlan Company. We're awarding you with our full business. And that was worth $110 million a year.
So you traded 12 for 110?
Yeah. If we hadn't lost,
Wow.
I don't think I'd have had the despair that created the desire and the drive to do something so
it's
much
like
bigger.
a mania. Like
It was.
It's
And Sharon had it, but it was not just
Wow.
us. We were surrounded by a team of people that were just as wildly ambitious about it.
Wow.
And we won it, and it changed everything. It changed everything about me. It changed everything about how I felt about my career, but it also changed our stock price. We hired hundreds of people.
Holy cow.
It was truly life-changing. Our stock price at the time was like $26. We announced to the market, had other good results and everything. I think our stock price went to something like $48 a share. It was big. And so the one thing I would say is a loss can be exactly what you need.
Wow.
To propel you to something you never thought possible.
That's incredible. Did you know before that was in you? Like, I'm gonna, like, you knock me down, I'm gonna get back up 5 times?
I don't think so. I'd never had something that was so soul crushing.
Yeah.
And something that I had to own. Like, you know, I could blame a lot of things for the other things that have been bad in my life that I could try to argue were not my fault. But in this one, why I felt it so badly is I should have done better. And it was my fault. And people were losing their jobs because of it. And that was kind of inescapable. So it provoked something inside of me like, okay, this is not going to be the story. I'm going to write a new story. And I didn't write it. The team did. But we just believed.
Wow.
Crazy belief.
That's
yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but I like my nephew's a great golfer, and I remember this tournament. He was leading by 10 strokes. And he just fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And after he lost, he just kept walking the course. We couldn't get him to come off the course, and I ran out and I found him, and I was like, "You need this for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Some reason you got to learn from this.
Yeah.
It sucks. It hurts. It's bone crushing." And this can be the story, or you can say, what did I learn? And use this to be the next success.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I have told, so I think in every business there's cycles and there's downturns and things. And especially when you live in Michigan, there's a lot of them because the automotive industry cycles a lot.
Yeah.
And I've told salespeople, when we're in the bad periods, so sometimes you earn money, sometimes you make money.
Yeah.
Making money that's when it's
Yes,
easy.
yes.
When it's not easy, that's when you're
Earning it. Yeah.
And
I love that.
yeah, it's
that.
true, but man, that is an incredible
Yeah.
example.
We earned it.
Of earning. That's so cool.
During that period. And my husband, I would be up in my office. We lived in Danville, California, and I had an office not far from our bedroom. And I would be up in my office at 4:00 in the morning. Like I couldn't even sleep with the responsibility of it.
Mm-hmm.
I worked crazy hours, and everybody just was awesome about it for 2-3 years.
Wow. That's so cool. Now then, after that, now you know it's in you.
Yes.
Now you're like,
Yeah.
do whatever you
Yeah.
want to me, because I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna 10x it every
Yeah.
time.
I don't know what it's like to be a Navy SEAL and to know it's in you. Like you were describing that where you had to go find little rods or little sticks in a
Yeah.
field, and if you didn't,
In a
they
mountain
poured
range.
cold water on you and made
Yeah.
you sit in the cold. I don't like being cold. That whole story, I was like, I really feel like that would be the time where I'd be like, all right, it's been great. I'm cold. I'm peacing out. How did you find it in you to do what you did, which was
Yeah.
the impossible?
It's a good question.
But something that
Um,
99.9% of the world could never do.
Yeah. I think that the big thing was there was a purpose behind it. So I joined for the purpose, which was 9/11.
Yes.
It was a sense of like the free world is in jeopardy and we have to do this. That's how it started. And I do look back at it as probably one of the most hyper-focused parts of my life. You know, I just worked out. I only thought about that. But I do remember the day that I signed was like the best day of my life. I felt like this, I was like, this is the right thing.
Yeah.
And then I just focused on it. That's what got me to that point. And what got me through that point was the team. Then you get involved with these people that are just all awesome, great people, same mentality, everyone better than the next. Like I said, you're never the smartest, fastest, biggest, strongest. You're never the est of anything. You're just trying to be part of this amazing team. That's what gets you through it. But it was the purpose that drove the whole thing. And, again, it was very much a reaction to the state of the world at that time and the need to protect. I think that, for some reason, has always been in me as a protection. When I was very, very little, I wanted to be a police officer. I've always sort of had, this desire to help people that can't help themselves. And I think it came out in that, but yeah, it was the purpose. It was the purpose that drove that. But it is the same thing. Once you discover that in yourself, then you know every time it's
got it
gonna,
in me.
and like you said, it's going to work out
Yes, it
no
is.
matter what.
Oof. That there had to been times where you're like, "Am I going to survive this?" Like some of the training I see, just videos of it, I think it looks terrifying. Actually, it's like can I
So
survive
there
this?
was one, like the moment I knew that I was going to make it through was so Hell Week starts, and I was telling the story I think to Andy the other day. So Hell Week starts on Sunday, and then you spend, it's all just this pandemonium, and you take the boats out into the surf, and then you land them on some rocks, and then you run it down the beach, and then you're doing that like all night into Monday morning. Now the sun's risen. They let you sit down. They do that to let everybody start to mentally psych themselves out. And that's when like most of the people that quit, you just see people just get up.
Really?
It's not in the hard times that people
Yeah.
quit. It's like when you get to sit and think about it.
Right.
And so I was sitting there, and I didn't have any sort of moment like that. And then we were running to breakfast with the boats on your head, as you do. And I just remember there was a guy in my buds class who had broken his neck under a boat in a previous class, and then he healed and he was back in the class. I don't know if that was in my mind or whatever, but I was running, and I was the Smurf crew, so we were in the back, and they were
What's the
screaming
Smurf
at
crew?
the shortest guy. So
gotcha.
you have to line up in a height line, and then they separate you into boat crews. Because if you have a boat on your head, and I'm 5'6" with a bunch of 6-footers, I'm taking none of the weight. So they line you up in height order, and the short one, literally the boat has a Smurf drawn on it. And they call it the Smurf crew. So we were in the back. They're yelling, so we're like, let's go, let's go. So we start running, and the boat starts just,
Oh, no.
it's like a sine curve. Like it just starts bouncing and just smashing me on the head. And I just remember I was like, I'm gonna break my fucking neck.
Skull, your neck, yes, yeah.
And so, but I just
had evidence that this was
right,
possible.
yeah. And so I just like clenched up my head, and I was like, okay, I feel like I'm pretty good. And at that moment, I was like, if I can not break my neck, I can there's
survive
nothing.
it all.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing that's going to stop me. But that was more of like a physical,
Yeah.
not so much a mental. But I was just like, I'm just gonna gut it out here and just not break my neck.
Oh.
But
I love your point about the need to protect, or the desire to protect. I have a lot of that in me too. I'm a very, I have a strong desire to
yeah,
help, nurture, but protect
yep.
my team and my family. You know, we're wildly
And I bet
protective of our family.
I think
too.
that is probably a big part of the reason that people follow you so devoutly is that comes through. So
You brought up Andy. I hope that Andy's going to be on this podcast because he's.
I
such
want
a
him to
guy.
be. Yeah,
He's
I'm
a
gonna
gentleman
touch
named
base with
Andy Rashid. Like the kind of people that we work with is. I'll just to profile Andy because it is my team at Pine, but it's actually the greater team across the businesses. Okay, good. Andy has been one of the most prolifically successful sellers in our industry, bar none. Maybe the most successful. His results just as a seller and as a leader of sales, you know, are unparalleled
Wow.
in terms of winning new customers and the growth.
He's got a fire. You can see.
He does. For all of that, though, like a peer group of none, almost. He's the one at night thinking, like, how can I do this better? Talk about design thinking. He's like the first to try new technology. He's using AI in his sales process to think about how can I have better quality conversations with customers. Just constantly innovating, constantly saying, what can I do to do this better? Wow. And you would think he'd be like, hey, like, I'm the king. All right, so celebrate me.
Right.
Not at all. He's humble. He's helpful. Everyone calls him to ask him, how would you do it? And he takes all the time to help people. He'll give everybody his playbook. Anything he's done that's worked, he'll give it to anyone. Like, help, you know, so it's not like he holds these secrets, so he keeps beating everyone. He shares them and helps everybody to be their best.
Wow.
And it's just like this remarkable spirit and cultural norm we have that's pretty amazing that he's for sure an outlier, but is representative of the group. Everyone helps everyone. And they're competitors.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
They actually will all want to win, like in construction. I've got 3 other businesses do construction, and they're helping each other all the time. It's just crazy.
That's awesome.
It's a good thing. And you had someone on the team say, "How do you know it's a good culture?" You know, this does stand out, and I tell people that it is special. You're going to have other experiences that are good, and you're going to have other experiences that are great, but this one's definitely special.
Yeah.
And don't mess with a streak, right? Never mess with the streak. I'm like, we got to protect it. We got to stay on it. Nobody changed their clothes because we're on a streak. We're winning. We got momentum.
I mean, it was palpable in the room. The team is bought in. They are feeling empowered. They feel the love. It's really an incredible, very unique organization.
Thank you.
I commend you and admire you for what you've done with it, and the way that you lead people is it's special. And I appreciate you letting me be a small part of it.
You're a part of the team now.
Well, I appreciate that.
You assimilated beautifully in. You taught us some things that were going to help us take our businesses to the next level. And you were awesome at pickleball.
I wasn't that awesome.
You were fun.
My wife.
You were with us at the very end of the.
I was.
We were doing our own version of Navy SEAL training.
We were indeed.
Of how late can we stay out?
So my wife said to me, by the way, I told her I got the silver medal. She said, "Isn't second place the first loser?" So it pays to be married to the right person.
She's
who
a winner
keeps
too.
You, she is.
Yeah, she's a winner
She
too.
is. She is. So, but
Thank
really, Jana, thank you so much for letting me be part of this, for sharing some really incredible insights on the show. I think there's just so many poignant gems there to take away from this, and it is no surprise that people want to follow you. So, thank you very much.
Right back at you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you